The lighting is good.
Okay.
Yeah, talk about lighting. Wow. All right. So yeah, Strongman TV episode number
14?
some number awesome.
Number amazing.
Yeah, with Gabby
And Jason Strongman.
All right, so we had an interesting question on the
Facebook page, right?
on the Facebook page, yeah, about breathing. And so we will attempt to address that specifically, as well as generally. First things first, breathe.
It's important and
If you
necessary.
don't, you will die. Second thing, I think I've always had kind of a weird attitude about this, because I think I really started lifting because I was doing like traditional like Asian martial arts, and like in all of those, like breathing is kind of something that they teach you to do really early on, and they teach you to incorporate certain types of breathing, whether you're holding your breath, exhaling, when you're doing certain actions. And so my first big strength coach influence was probably Pavel of like kettlebell fame, and I think he has a very similar background. And so a lot of the RKC and strong first techniques are taught with breathing incorporated like from the get-go. And so at some point or another, if you do these things long enough, they become very autonomic, and you stop thinking about how you're holding your breath, or maybe you're exhaling, when you're choosing to inhale, and you just you do it pretty naturally, pretty reflexively. And I think most athletes could agree this is the case with something like a heavy deadlift. You kind of know that you sort of brace your abdominals and kind of hold your breath and until you know that the bar is kind of past the sticking point. And I guess that's a good launching point for like kind of talking about breathing. The first thing would be the main purpose of not breathing, or using what's called, I guess, the Valsalva technique, is to create intra-abdominal pressure. The more scientific explanation of this is literally if there's pressure inside this cabin from here to here, pushing out on all the walls, one of the main things it's doing is pushing down and pushing up. If you do the Valsalva maneuver hard enough, you'll shit your pants or throw up. You should probably also, try to avoid doing that. But nevertheless, the pressure is pushing up and down, and one of the natural pieces of this is the spine is decompressed, right? So if the stressor is like compressing the spine from above, then using that technique, pushing out against the walls, will decompress the spine in the opposite direction. This is of immense benefit when doing a heavy squat, a heavy deadlift, something like the yoke or the farmer squat. Now, if you've ever tried it before, you'll know that you cannot hold your breath indefinitely.
No, doesn't work that way.
No, so you've got to decide when you're going to do it, when you're not going to do it. We could break down like every kind of like event and separate them into, okay, these are the ones where you hold your breath the whole time, this is where you breathe like this, where you breathe like that. But I think that would be too long and kind of confusing.
Yep.
So like kind of create some general rules. First thing is, if spinal stability is like critical to like the binary success or failure, then you're probably holding your breath.
Yes.
And you're literally holding it until success is relatively assured or achieved. Yeah. So let's say a max effort deadlift is not going to go straight up. Usually it's going to take a few seconds of grinding. Right? At some point or another, your head will explode or you breathe. So
breathing's a good option.
you need to be able to exhale at some point. And basically, I think we all know from our own experiences where that will be. For someone who gets stuck on the floor, basically as soon as the bar is like getting to the knees, you know you're okay, and you can let go some of that pressure and everything's fine. For those who get stuck in the lockout, you've probably learned at some point that if you hitch hard enough, like if the knees move forward far enough, the bar can actually like rest on your thighs, then you're kind of out of harm's way, and you can like let go of that pressure, and all you're going to end up doing is working your hip in a full extension, and you can breathe. So like knowing that aspect of those lifts will help you out tremendously. But let's just say for something like a max effort, like yoke pick or deadlift or farmer's pick, something that's just one heavy thing for a few seconds, you're basically going to breathe deeply into your abdomen, you're wearing a belt, which we're pretty much assuming in these events you are, you'll be pushing out with your abs against the belt, right? And the belt won't go anywhere, right? So the pressure will go down and the pressure will go up, right? So you're pushing out against the belt, you're holding that pressure and you're holding the breath until you can't possibly fail. And then once you know you're good, you're breathing again. Okay? And then you're probably breathing, I won't say naturally, but with a lot less conscious effort.
Yeah. That's the main advantage of the belt, is really the creation of extra intra-abdominal pressure.
Yeah. So, and it acts basically like a positive feedback loop, right? Once this is on like this, it can't go anywhere. It's never going to change diameter. No matter how hard I push against it, it can't. So, it's only whatever internal pressure I've created inside my trunk is not going to go out this way. So it can only go out this way and this way. Yeah. Which again is, let me YouTube link this.
Yeah.
Why you'll see things like people just projectile vomiting during deadlifting. Yeah. There's a great strongman example.
Car deadlift.
Of car frame.
Yeah. Something like that.
Click at your own risk. But anyways, that's a real thing. It's pushing up and down. So I think the joke is girls pee.
Yeah.
Guys shit.
That's kind of how it.
But yeah, there's going to be a great deal of pressure on your pelvic floor, a great deal of pressure on your diaphragm. And so if you've never practiced this and you go running up to a contest trying to like max out, you could have an accident.
Practice.
So yeah, practice in a nice, safe place where people will make fun of you, but you know, they're still your friends.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that covers like that singular sort of max effort thing. A great transition would be once the yoke is picked, it's so fucking heavy, and it's taking you 20 seconds to like try to walk or run it. You cannot hold your breath for that full 20 seconds.
Yeah.
I think there's different strategies and approaches to this. What I try to do is maintain that sort of outward pressure on the belt and breathe shallow. So it's like, so that the size of my sort of transversus abdominis and everything else doesn't really change that much, but I'm still exchanging gases, right? And I'm letting go of some of that pressure. Then inevitably, I don't know the exact physiological mechanism here, but like during that whole, right, pressure seems to go up and up and up, and like you'll feel it in your head. Your face will get red, your eyeballs will want to explode, you'll get lightheaded, dizzy. You've got to let go of that air, or that will continue. And I think part of it's probably CO2 related, and like and having changing the acidity of your blood, and your brain knows that. So your brain gets you lightheaded because it would rather have you shut off, like it would rather have you collapse under the yoke than possibly starve the brain of precious nutrients. However ill-advised that may be, that's what's going to happen. You're gonna, like, if you continue down that path, you will pass out. So having some way of controlled breathing is really important. The reason I recommend what I do is because I can basically maintain, 70–80% of the sort of rigidity that I had on that initial sort of like Valsalva deadlift type of thing, and I can still breathe too. If it was a true max effort and I let go, like I'm gonna sink, and if the yoke is too heavy for me to move, then I'm gonna fail at that point. But if the yoke is like medium and I'm just trying to move fast, then like I can handle that weight with that shallow breathing. All right.
A little bit different with like pressing events, for example, and it kind of depends on the event. If it's something like a max effort log, a clean and press, depending on your real preference and how you train, you may sort of set yourself and brace yourself for the clean, and then once it's on your shoulders, you may brace again for pressing it overhead. If it's for reps, however, this becomes a little bit more complicated because again, you can't hold your breath for 60 seconds. Okay? And depending on how heavy it is, it's going to depend on sort of the amount that you need to brace and create that intra-abdominal pressure.
I would go back to the clean and press thing and say, there's an aspect of cleaning with the effort that's put into it and the way that you breathe that honestly enhances the press when it's done correctly. And so one argument would be to not waste any time between racking the clean and then proceeding to the press, because that'll be like the tightest your body's ever going to get. And if you're just holding a lug, you're just eventually going to start to sag.
Right.
So attempting the press immediately if possible is important, but that's really only possible if the clean is short enough to where you're not having your head explode yet, and you have a couple more seconds to kind of go for the press afterwards. Once that's done, like Gabby said, you can't try that 7 more times for 60 seconds. So I think the absolute best place to breathe, thank you Chris Lawyer in the weight room, is when you're locked out overhead. Right? This is something, again, you also do like in kettlebell sport a lot. You'll just hold the implement overhead and breathe, and then come back down and do the next thing. You can honestly, if your shoulder mobility is good and your positions are good, you can do that. You're gonna have to do it anyways because you're waiting for a down command, right? So you can hold the log for like a second or two, especially with a log if you're in a nice neutral position. You can hold the log for a second or two, breathe big breath into the belly, and like get the belt like fucking tight as shit. Right? And then bring that log down under that pressure. Guess what? Like, this is the biggest volume you could possibly have, right? So you create a certain amount of pressure at this volume. That pressure is just going to go up when the volume gets smaller, right? So you're going to be like fucking pressurized when you come down from that, like the first press and get ready for the second. And you'll be the tightest you could ever be in that position. But you've got to shoot quick because, again, your head's going to explode. So big breath, hold it tight, push the belt, bring the thing down, and go for the next one. Get it? Go for another one. And you can do that. You can do that for 60 seconds.
Yes, you can.
Because you're breathing every 5. You're going to be okay.
Yeah. And that's how both of us are.
I rely really heavily on the belt when it comes to rep work because I use that as a big part of like the tension that I create. And frankly, my shoulder's not that strong and I just get tired. And it's like, but I can breathe right and I can hold that breath in the belt and that kind of gives me so much rigidity that I can transfer force when I'm doing like a power jerk effectively, even though honestly I can barely hold on to the thing with my arms anymore.
Right. And I think another big thing with sort of using a belt to help generate intra-abdominal pressure is, like Jason said, you have to use it correctly. I think there's a lot of people who slap on a belt and then don't actually breathe in the way that we're describing.
Or change their behavior. They're just wearing an accessory.
And that's not really going to do much for you. And a big part of creating that pressure is sort of breathing in a very diaphragmatic way. So you want to breathe in like every direction. And this is a little bit difficult of a concept for people to grasp if they don't have some practicing breathing. Really.
I actually think it's really good to like just lay down on the floor where you can feel the space between your low back and the floor, and you can watch your belly rise and fall and practice breathing to different parts of your body. Like you can puff your chest up, you can stick your stomach out, and you can flatten your back into the floor all through the way that you kind of tense your muscles and inhale, exhale. And I think it's very valuable to practice trying to breathe your breath as low down into your belly as you can get it to go, and into your back, like into the floor. And you'll figure out how to do what Gabby's describing, which is tremendously beneficial for like a heavy
There is a really, really good video. If you like YouTube Dark Side Strength 90-90 breathing, there is a really good drill that you can do to warm up where you're essentially laying on the floor like Jason described. You've got your feet on the wall and there's like 90 degrees between your knee and your hip and all that stuff, and you practice breathing in that way where you can feel yourself to fill up from the bottom up, and doing a couple rounds of that, especially if you're new to using a belt or anything like that, is incredibly helpful. It also feels really nice. It's a nice stretch because most of us don't walk around sort of breathing deeply in the way that we should, so it's a little counterintuitive at first.
Yeah, if you're constantly passing out or doing weird shit, take some yoga, man.
Yeah,
like,
yoga helps a lot.
Do some Tai Chi, learn how to breathe.
Yeah.
It is tremendously beneficial, especially when it comes to like repetitious work, and you don't have a game plan for how you're going to breathe and not breathe in a judicious and efficient way. You're going to get tired fast. Like wrestling or judo or jiu-jitsu will teach you this very quickly. If somebody like lays on your chest with the express intent of crushing all the wind out of your body, and then you just like panic and freak out and squirm, you'll learn very quickly that you're gonna die.
Okay.
Yeah. So you got to figure out how to be tight and how to hold all that pressure and breathe without giving it up. So yeah, ask your gym buddy to just stand on your stomach.
Yeah, I mean,
breathe.
you just literally can put like a hand on your chest, hand on your stomach, and sort of learn how to breathe correctly. Also, if you don't have a hard belt, I think even a soft belt is very useful for this for certain things. Like I have a really big problem sort of hyperextending when I press overhead, so I wear a soft belt, not because it gives me really any type of support, but because it's a feedback mechanism to tell me to breathe properly. Right? So you can buy like a soft belt like for $20 off of Amazon or something like that. So that may be an option too to help sort of learn how to breathe because it's a little more flexible and you just get a little bit of feedback from that.
Favorite soft belt would be the Spud belt, and that's like
Spud belt's
$39.99.
nice.
It's super cheap, but it's actually pretty good belt.
Very nice. Yeah.
Like it's way more comfortable. So I'll go to it now with like deadlift stuff and things, like instead of like a hard powerlifting belt. It's just more comfortable. All right.
I think that's it. Are you like,
Yeah. Don't hold your breath while the stone is on your chest or face.
don't do that.
You will pass out.
You will, and that would be really bad. Yeah, I think sort of having specific practice with each implement and event for breathing purposes is pretty important.
I'm like going down the list in my head.
What else is there?
Yeah. I mean, the keg would be the exact same thing if you're
Yeah.
trying to load a keg high. But for whatever reason, I think it's the roundness and like the stone is just straight in your
Right
sternum.
here.
Like, and people get in this position where like, the only way that you can sustain this under load, like being this, like with your shoulders behind your heels, is because your glutes are working and your abs are tense. So your abs are that tense, you're not breathing.
No,
Right?
you can't, because then you lose all the
so,
tension.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Finish your load quickly.
Yes,
It's the worst
speed
feeling
is
ever.
the game. Yeah, that doesn't feel good at all.
Okay, so that's
I mean, we talked about, if you look at our yoke video, we talked a lot more about sort of how to breathe for the yoke.
I think the yoke is a great teaching mechanism because like when you're doing it heavier, you really do have to hold a lot of pressure on the L. But you have to breathe if you're going to do sets and reps of longer distances and like have a time off and then go again. You definitely have to manage your breathing. So that's maybe just a good training tool.
Yeah.
Just to learn it.
That's it.
Okay, yeah, that's it.
That really is it now.
All right. You want more videos?
We do.
Like us on YouTube. Comment on YouTube. That would be nice.
And on
Or Facebook. Yeah.
We
so,
like answering specific questions
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this one, so
So-
send them all.
Yeah. Some of them are really good. Like, hey, like I don't know. I know I'm supposed to hold my breath, but when? Like, maybe why? How it works. These are really good questions.
Keep them coming.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's it. Bye.
Only 17 minutes.